Hi, my name is Ann Simeo, and this is my data team presentation. Some of the positive outcomes of a data-wise school. You can establish a strong culture of data in your school and relying on that data for learning outcomes and improving outcomes. Display and discuss data to enhance teaching and learning is one of the things that the team will bring to other faculty members. Identify a problem of practice and the related teaching practices that might be in causing that problem to persist. Monitor teaching and learning through the lens of data. Increase effective communication of assessment data with all stakeholders. So not just the Board of Education within your school, but also the principal, the teachers, the students, the parents. Explore how data-wise improvement process brings coherence to the core workings of the school. Cultivate the habits of mind to improve team effectiveness and foster a supportive culture of improvement, and practice using a series of inquiry protocols. So it really does bring a positive environment to your school because you're looking at the positive ways that you can have your teachers look at ways of improving student performance. Some of the steps in creating a data team. You want to ensure that there's time set aside for those teachers to collaborate and analyze that data. If they don't have time to get together, they're not going to be able to do a good job. You have to find a team leader to oversee the data team. In most cases, they recommend for this not to be the principal, so that the principal could be somebody who looks at the data after it comes out of the data team. Ensure that there's a professional development available for teachers to implement changes. So some of the things that might come out of some of these data teams as they're looking at various teaching methods is that they want to improve by doing something new and different, but that costs money and time. Establish a clear process for analyzing the data. And have focused conversations about student learning often. Don't make it just once a month or once a quarter, but have it be part of every meeting that you have together. And also make sure that the meeting with the data team is about student learning and not just about the data. You want to improve that student learning. When you develop a data team, the members of the team should have a common focus, common formative assessments, and common scoring guides. So you need to get a group of faculty members together that are teaching the same class, are willing to use the same formative assessments, and also have the same rubric that they're using, or percentage correct if it's a multiple choice, different things like that. The team creates a pretest data, provides instruction, and then collects the post-test data. That's one of the options. The other option is to just provide the instruction and then collect the post-test data. Note that that pretest and post-test should be created by the data team and also analyzed and create a rubric together as a data team. The team must work collaboratively to ensure consistency in instructional practices and analyzing student data to make decisions about student growth. So they have to be willing to work together, and they have to be willing to have their instruction practices as they're teaching in each of these sets be consistent. So they can differ a little bit, but you really want that consistency in that classroom. Steps for the data team. So I liked these steps and I wanted to outline them here. So the first step the data team should do is collect and chart the data. So don't just collect the data, but bring it to the team meeting in a way that everyone can read it, whether it's in a chart or summarized in some way. Step 2 is to analyze student work. So you want to look at various specific students' work and how certain students were successful, who that student is, because the teacher is in that room so they can give background about that particular student. Also, some of the weaker works. Why do we think that those students performed weaker? And we can actually look at what they wrote down, and were they far away? Were they close? Was there a little tweak that could have been made? Step 3 is to set SMART goals. A SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. The fourth step is to determine instructional strategies in order to improve. And step 5 is to determine results indicators. What do we consider an appropriate result as we're looking at the various tests that we're giving. And also, this continual step 6 is monitoring. So why it's continual is it always should be done. So you should always monitor those results after every single step, not just at the very end of the process. Here's a sample worksheet that a DataWise through-line worksheet. I thought this was interesting. So you want to focus on the area, priority questions, user-centered problems, problems of practice, action plan, and the plan to assess progress as you go through. I thought this was a really good worksheet, and I wanted to include it. So now I want to have a sample area of need that I could come up with through my role. So I teach math at a community college, and one of the things that is a hot topic item right now that we all want to see is increase the percentage of students that successfully complete a college level math class on the first attempt. I realize that that is way over what we would actually look at. So as I go through, I kind of part it down a little bit, but that would be what the data team really and truly wanted to get to. And they would have to take baby steps along the way in order to say, okay, what are measurable goals from one semester to the next to start increasing that percentage of students in completing those college math classes. So I think that the team would first focus on statistics classes because this is the class taken by most students to fulfill their college level math classes. So there's multiple college level math classes, but statistics is one that is looked at as a barrier course because it's one of the classes that students that are not in math STEM fields take in order to fulfill that college level credit. So choosing data team members. So we want to make sure the members for the data team will be chosen from statistics classes that are currently teaching a statistics class that semester, and they want to focus on specific learning outcomes. The members of the team should meet weekly. They're going to outline the objectives to be taught that week, determine the instructional method that will be used, and create a post-test to collect data to be analyzed. I chose not to have pre-test and post-test because having a pre-test and a post-test with only a 2-day class or a 3-day class might be really difficult. We don't see students all day, 5 days a week. We see them for 50 minutes, 3 days a week, or 90 minutes, 2 days a week, which adds to the complexity of having weekly meetings with pre-test and post-test. So that's why I chose just the post-test there. So next steps for the data team. The data team needs to investigate following questions during their work. How will we know what students are learning? So they want to collect and chart data. They want to analyze student work in order to do that. How will we respond to students who are not learning? Well, you want to try and set SMART goals for those students and for the class in general. What do we expect students to learn? Well, part of that is those learning outcomes. It's also determining instructional strategies to get to those outcomes. And also, what do we expect to learn? We need to determine results indicators. Otherwise, we can't say whether they're actually learning or not. So what they want to learn is learning objectives. How do we do that? Through instructional strategies and results. How will we know what students are learning? Well, the data team needs to first determine the learning outcomes that they want the students to demonstrate for that class, which is included in the syllabus, but they probably, in that first semester that they're working on it, in that first week, pick one learning outcome from the beginning of the semester. The team needs to agree on a teaching method to present the material for the first agreed upon learning outcome. They will then create a post-test in order to collect the data from each of their individual students. The team will then meet to discuss the overall results of their post-test that has been summarized into an easily readable chart, and they also have to be ready to discuss specific student outcomes. So they want to bring the student work with them in addition to that overall summary. That way they can look and see how the learning outcome was met. If it wasn't measured in their rubric, did a student succeed in a different way that the rubric wasn't measuring? How will we respond to students who are not learning? So the data team will need to set up a SMART goal. A data team could look at that first week and determine what they want to change in the method of instruction during that next week in order to see if they can increase the number of students who did not successfully pass. Note that passing, since it's a formative assessment, would need to be predetermined by the team. And what one of their SMART goals could be is that they want by the second post-test that 5% more students are going to successfully complete that learning objective. This would give them 1 week to improve the results. So it is timely, it's relevant, it's achievable, and it's measurable, and it's very specific. So you have some type of assessment that you give to the class, and the first week, say 60% of the students successfully demonstrated that learning objective. Maybe in week 2, we want 65% of the students to successfully demonstrate that learning objective. And maybe by week 3, we want 70% of the students. So as we go through, the team would have to decide on how we are going to determine that. And then how do we expect students to learn? So we have to talk about instructional strategies as you're teaching them. The team needs to agree on the instructional strategy to increase the percentage of students who would pass from the first week to the second week. The team can also discuss what they feel worked during that first week and what did not work during that first week. Let's make sure that we're including more of things that are working and maybe take away some of the things that are not working. And then this is also where they're talking about that group of students who were not successful in the first strategy and what didn't work for them. And they can also talk about the students who were successful and what worked for them. And knowing the specific students, they can also talk about the history of those students and what kind of learning strategies work for those students. And then results indicators, the team will look at the post-test to determine how they determine what is passing for the students. So what does it really mean to show that you have achieved that learning outcome for the first part of statistics? So some of my final thoughts. Data teams give teachers a voice to help determine how to meet the needs of every child in their classroom, to improve teaching, learning, and leadership. So a lot of times I feel that teachers feel that their teaching methodologies are pushed down on them. But when they have a voice through data-wise data teams, they are a lot more creative in how can they help their students achieve those improved outcomes. And teachers who have a voice in ways to improve their process tend to have higher student success rate. That is my quote. I'm sure I stole it from somewhere, but it wasn't intentional. And it was something that as I worked through this, I really and truly felt was part of the process, that as you're giving the teachers voices and you put them in a team together to help improve their students, that's what every single one of us wants. And then the references that I have are here, and I hope that you enjoyed my presentation.